A very warm welcome to all of you students. So today we are in line with the next lectures of the series from the culture of mammalian cells for the paper code MBT 401 and unit 1 of the paper. So now we are starting with the procedures or the methods that can incorporate to establish mammalian cell cultures. Now, from where do we get the cultures? From how do we initiate the cultures? What are the conditions, or how you can establish a cell culture? What kind of cell cultures are available? That all we are going to understand in the today's lecture. Now, first thing, when we start with any kind of culture, we need to have some kind of culturing organism. What should be it? So, till now, you may be knowing about many of the uh, microbial cultures, simple yeast or bacterial cultures, fungal cultures. Now, we are talking of the mammalian cells or the higher eukaryotic cells that you need to culture. Now, what can be the sources of these cells? First, the choice that you want to do of the source, it should depend upon the project that you are going to take up. That is, what kind of experiment you want to plan, whether it is for experimental purpose or whether it is for production purpose, or it is to be directly used for some kind of testing or analysis. So the choice will depend upon what is your intention to do with the cultured cells. So for that very reason, the choice can be either an embryonic or a fetal tissue, that is, you are obtaining the cells from the embryo. Now, the choice will be favored or preferred for the embryonic tissue because it is a fast proliferating group of cells. They have many growth factors which will in itself support the survival of the new culture. So it has many it will be having many growth factors. The cells have a high proliferation rate and better adaptability. The cells are not differentiated cells. So you can have a very good opportunity by culturing these cells. Then another source can be your adult normal tissue. That is, if you are trying to understand the normal physiology of the cell, normal responses of the cell to some kind of substance or drug, medicine, or toxin, then these tissues can be easily used. So from a normal adult organism, that or maybe a human subject, these cells may be derived. Another source can be your tumorous tissues, where the cells have been transformed or have become malignant or cancerous. And if you want to study the characteristics of such kind of cells, then you need to isolate them from some kind of biopsy tissues. So, any cell from such kind of tissue will tell you about the characteristics of tumorous cells, or how can you treat these cells with anti-cancerous compounds, what kind of proteins are being hyperactivated or down-regulated in these cells can be easily understood. Then another choice or availability is from the cell culture collections. So there are various cell culture collections from where you can have the cells. Now the advantage of these culture collections is that the cells available are well characterized in terms of growth, origin, and genetic traits. So you don't have to recharacterize them, or you don't have to optimize the conditions for their growth. Only you have to do is that you have to make them accustomed, or the handling practices according to your own lab conditions. So these cell culture conditions are readily available conditions, and on payment of some money, and these can be easily used. So these are preferred on the to the first three mode of tissue sources. So there are some examples of the cell culture collections, groups or centers. The first is the American type culture collection, that is ATCC, or another is European collection of animal cell culture, ECACC. The Public Health Laboratory Services, the Center for Applied Microbiology Research, and so on. And so these collections, they already collect and characterize the cells, and then they provide to the prospective users for the purpose of experimentation or production. Now, how many types of culture we can grow? So broadly, there are two categories, that is the primary culture and the secondary culture. Now, what is a primary culture? Primary culture, it is the stage of the culture after isolation of the cell, but before the first subculture. So you have isolated the cell from the tissue, and then you are trying to grow it in a vessel, in a container, most rarely a T75 kind of flask, and then you are uh, when the growth of the population is more, or it is confluent, or it is the flask is full and cannot further support the growth, then you have to subculture it. So at that, the the duration during these two instances, the culture will be known as a primary culture. So now there are four stages to consider. First is acquisition of the sample, as I've told you, the source of the sample. Then the isolation of the tissue. Third is dissection and or disaggregation, that is, if you are taking from a or the animal, you are directly taking out the tissue, or disaggregation in case you have dissected out the tissue and now you want to separate out the single cells. Then culture after seeding into the culture vessel, that is subculturing. So we go back to the last slide. Now here you can see you have the organ, a normal organ, and an organ having a tumor. So now you want to isolate the cells from these two sources. Now, how can you do that? You want to start a primary culture here. So, end product is primary culture. How you can start it? The cells are isolated by enzymatic and mechanical action. Enzymatic action incorporates that the some kind of enzyme has been used. Maybe they are mostly proteases, so that the cells that are in bound in a matrix system, that is, they are forming a tissue like structure, that matrix should be broken down. So the extracellular matrix that is binding or adhering the two different kinds of cells into a tissue organization, that has to be broken down. So for that purpose, some proteases are utilized. The enzymes may be utilized, collagenase or trypsins or other proteases, DNases, that may be used to break down this matrix like structure, so that the single cell culture or suspension is obtained. Now this is kept in many least quantity of media, and then they are allowed to grow under normal conditions in an incubator. Normal conditions for culture, somewhat like you keep the carbon dioxide concentration, you maintain the humidity, the temperature, so those according to the species from which the cell has been isolated. So now these cells will grow into a confluent culture. Now, as you see, the vessel is full, or the culture is at the confluent stage. That is approximately around 90 to 95% of the space of the flask or the vessel container has been occupied. Now, at this particular stage, I'm sorry, the mechanical action I did not discuss. Now, the mechanical action, that is by using some kind of force or pressure. You can use it by pipet, continuous repeated pipetting, or by use of syringe like equipment, something like that, so that some kind of mechanical pressure is applied and the cells are able to disaggregate from the tissue organization. Next is your secondary culture. Now, when you have obtained the primary culture and it has reached a confluent stage, then you will subculture it. Now, this subculture will give rise to the secondary culture or the primary cell line. And you keep on subculturing it. Whenever it reaches this particular confluent state, you keep on subculturing this layers, and the cell division continues up to finite divisions. It will be forming a cell line. Now, if this source is from a tumor, then the cell division continues up to indefinite divisions. So they are immortal cell lines, and they will develop a continuously growing, indefinitely growing cell line. So the cells can be obtained by enzymatic or mechanical action. The tissue may be either normal tissue or a tumorous tissue, and the procedure will be same for both the tissues. The cells will be isolated by enzymatic or mechanical action. Then they will be cultured in the flask or petri plates, and then when the confluence is reached, then they are subcultured. So now we come to back to the primary culture. Now we have discussed about these. The acquisition of the sample has been discussed, isolation and dissection, and even the culturing. Now, after the isolation, the primary culture obtained is allowed to migrate out from fragments of tissue adhering to a suitable substrate. Now, this can be the cells may either be attached to the substrate, or they may produce a suspension of cells which will ultimately attach to the substrate. Now, it appears essential for normal untransformed cells, with the exception of hemopoietic cells, that is your blood cells, to attach to a flat surface in order to survive and proliferate with maximum efficiency. Whereas the transformed cells, they are particularly cells from the transplantable animal tumors, they often proliferate in suspension cultures. That is, they do not adhere to any kind of subsurface. Now, what are the characteristics? Now, the primary culture, as you are isolating the cells from the tissue or the organ, so it is mostly the heterogeneous cells that constitute your primary culture. And most of the cells divide only for a limited time. The duration is limited. If you want to subculture it uh, for indefinite period, it won't happen because they will have a definite lifespan. However, these cells are much similar to their parents. So mostly you can say these are clonal derivatives of the original tissue. Now, depending on their origin, the primary cells grow either as an adherent monolayer or in a suspension. So, you have a adherent cell culture or a suspension cell culture. So, depending upon the type of cells that you are using in the culture, either it will be an adherent cell culture or a suspension cell culture. Now, in the adherent cell culture, the cells will be adherent or anchorage dependent and they propagate as a monolayer. Now, these cells require a solid or a semi solid substrate where they can attach and then proliferate. They use the extracellular matrix, which is generally derived from tissues or organs that are immobile and embedded in a network of connective tissue. So, an example is the best are your fibroblast and epithelial cells. Now, when the culture vessel is covered with a continuous layer, usually one in thickness, then these cultures are known as monolayer cultures. That is, the layers are not piling up above the other. So, that is a single layer is obtained, and that is known as a monolayer culture. Now, majority of the continuous cell lines grow as monolayers. Now, being single layers, the advantage is they can be easily transferred to the cover slip to observe under the microscope. Now, another kind of primary culture is your suspension culture. Now, the suspension cultures, they do not attach to the surface of the culture vessel. These cells are anchorage independent or they are non adherent and they can simply float in the culture medium and proliferate. So, the cells derived from blood, spleen, or bone marrow or the tumor cells can be grown in suspensions. These cells have a fast growth rate, they do not require the frequent replacement of the medium and can be easily maintained. These are homogeneous types and mostly uniform type, single type of cells, and the enzyme treatment is not required for the dissociation of cells. Similarly, these cultures have short lag period. Now, as I told you, the confluent culture, that is the growing capacity, the surface that is available for growth, that is approximately filled up to 90 to 95%. So we don't allow to the cells to grow beyond that, because if they grow beyond that, then the space will be very crowded and the the growth will be inhibited. The cells will start inhibiting the growth of each other, and the mutations may be induced due to stress like conditions. So when this particular condition is reached, that is 90 to 95% growth is reached, the culture is said to be confluent. And as I tell you that this extra growth is detrimental for the growth of the cultured cells, so the necessity for subculturing arises. So after this condition reaches in a primary culture, it takes at least a few days, 2 3 days to reach the confluence, and then it becomes so crowded that you have to necessarily subculture the cells. Now, what is subculturing? That you are splitting the culture. The available culture has been split, and the portion is transferred into a new vessel with fresh growth medium, which naturally provides more space for the cells to grow, and fresh medium will add more nutrients for the continuous growth of both portion of the cells. So the subculture keeps the cells healthy and in growing state. Now, this particular activity, that is subculturing, that is known as passaging of the cells. Now, when you passage a cell or subculture a cell, then you give it a number, that is at what number you have passaged it, whether the passage is for the first time or the second time, third time, fourth time, and so on for nth number. Then you get the passage number, and it specifically shows that how many times a cell line has been subcultured. In contrast with the population doubling level, in that a specific number of cells involved is not relevant. So, what is the in what time the population will double or how many cells will be there, that is not relevant here in the passage number. It simply gives a general indication of how old the cell may be for various assays. That is, if you say that the passage number of a particular cell line is 20, that means that cell has already been cultured for subcultured for 20 times. So the cells have become aged, and maybe they have undergone some kind of changes and not very suitable for the production purposes or for experiment purposes. So this will give you an indication whether the cell is now suitable for a particular assay or not. Now, cells from the established cell lines, or as I was telling you, from the culture collections. So, that is giving rise to a secondary culture. Now, this secondary culture is not directly derived from the living organism or from an organ or from a tissue. This is derived from an already established culture, that is primary culture. So this will be known a secondary culture or a cell line or a subclone. So the process involves removing the growth media and dissociating the adhered cells. So the passaging or the subculturing is a inherent characteristic of the secondary culture. Now, this leads to the generation of cell lines. When you are subculturing the primary cells to different divisions, then it leads to the generation of cell lines. Now, during the passage, the cells with the highest growth capacity, that is, the cells that grow very fast. In the tissue, the tissue is heterogeneous composite. So, from that heterogeneous composite, the cells that will grow at the highest rate, they will predominate, resulting in a degree of genotypic and phenotypic uniformity in the populations. So you can isolate uh, a single type of cell from that heterogeneous population. However, as they are subcultured serially, they become different from the original cell. Now, how they become different? As I've already indicated in the last slide, that they become modified according to the growth conditions. If sometimes by suppose you have not monitored it, and the population of the cells is more than the confluent population, then the stress like conditions taken place, and then cells try to evolve and adapt according to that particular condition. Then another thing is you are putting the cells from in vivo to in vitro condition, that is they were in the living system, now you have put them into an different system, so they are trying to adapt to that system also. So that is why they become very much different from the original cell. Now, what are finite and continuous cell lines? So, if you have a primary culture, then uh, the cells will grow for a definite lifespan only. If you have cells from a transformed cell line, then those cells will grow for indefinite duration. So, on the basis of the lifespan of the culture, for how long, for how many passages, for how many subcultures the cells can grow, that will help you to define the cells into two categories, that is, either as a finite cell line or as a continuous cell line. So the finite cell lines, the cell lines which go through a limited number of cell divisions having a limited lifespan, are known as finite cell lines. The cells passage several times and then lose their ability to proliferate, which is genetically determined event known as senescence. So there is an aging process, and then after aging, uh, the cells will die off. So that is determined within the genetic component, within the replication process of the DNA, that the after a particular duration, number of divisions, the cell will die. Then cell lines derived from primary cultures of normal cells are finite cell lines. So as we have seen in previous slides, that the cells that are obtained from normal organ, they are your finite cell lines. They grow for a definite number of times, and then the cultures are died off. Then the continuous cell lines, when the finite cell line undergoes transformation. Suppose you have most easily you can understand with the cancerous cell lines, or there the cells have been transformed, mutations have taken place, changes have occurred in their maybe structure or physiology. The morphology and the physiology has acquired some changes. So they acquire the ability to divide indefinitely, and this cell line becomes a continuous cell line. So such transformations or mutations that can maybe they can occur spontaneously, or they can be chemically induced, or maybe induced by any infectious agent, or from the establishment of cell cultures from malignant tissues. The cell cultures prepared in this way can be subcultured and grown indefinitely as permanent cell lines, and they are mostly immortal. So they can be grown indefinitely. Then passage numbers may be indefinite, but still, when we go for passage numbers, then we try to limit the passage numbers after particular, maybe for 30 to 40 passage numbers. After that, we try to discard the cell line and take a fresh from the storage or collection. We take a fresh vial and then start subculturing it. So in that sense, you can say that culture is not immortal, but the cells are immortal. These cells are less adherent, fast growing, less fastidious, that is the nutritional requirements are not rigid, and they can grow in minimum media also. The media that we talked in the last lectures, that is minimum essential media, or the Delbecque's modified Eagles media. So they can grow in those kind of minimum essential medias, and they grow up to higher cell density, and the have a different phenotype from the original tissue. Why different phenotype? Because I've told you that they try to adapt to the change scenario. They were growing in a tissue like, or in a 3D tissue like organization, and now they are growing as a monolayer on a artificial adherent surface. So the phenotypes change from the original tissues. Such cells grow more in suspension, and they have a tendency to grow on top of each other in multi layers in culture vessel surfaces. So they have the tendency, because they were in the 3D structure scenario in the living system. So they have the ability has not been lost, but for the well-being, for the proper growth, to maintain the phenotypic and the characteristics of the cell, the multi layers are uh, not favored. So they are grown in monolayer cultures. Now, the common cell lines are, if you talk of human cell lines, then there are MCF7 cell, HL60 HeLa, that is from human cervical cancer. Primate cell lines are Vero, that is from the African green monkey kidney epithelial cells, or the MDCK cell line, that is a canine cell line, L6, that is rat skeletal muscle, or BHK, that is baby hamster kidney cells, 3T3, that is a mouse connective tissue cell line of fibroblast. So there are various cell lines, and from which the cultures can be grown. Now, cell strain. We were talking about cell lines, we have talked about the cultures. Now, what is cell strain? The cell strain is the lineage of cells that has originated from primary culture. Now, when you are using the uh, disaggregated cells from the primary culture, and the primary culture has yet not been subcultured, then those cells will be known as your cell strain. Those cultures will be known as cell strain. These are either derived from a primary culture or a cell line by the positive selection or cloning of cells having specific properties or characteristics. That is, suppose you have grown some kind of cell that is deficient in particular gene. So you, if you want to test that the response of that deletion of the gene, then you isolate those particular clones of the cells, and these cells will be known as cell strain. So this strain often acquires additional genetic changes subsequent to the initiation of the parent cell line.